So I'm gonna first of all gonna start discussing on mass. We're gonna discuss the properties of mass and some examples on it and what are the SI units, some definitions over here. Then I'm gonna talk about weight and its SI units and what does it mean with some examples. And then we'll compare both of them. We're gonna derive a relation between mass and weight. And then we're gonna talk about some gravitational field strength, right? So because gravity is pretty important, right? In case of weight. So yeah. So let's start with the mass over here. So we basically कोई गया है basically someone went to let's imagine this is Ali. Ali went to a shop, ठीक है? And the shop is basically the milk shop, right? It says कि it is a milk shop. And I believe कि वो almost all of you, ठीक है? Most of you, ठीक है? Not all of you, would have said कि let's say you went to the shop and you said कि you want 1 kg of milk, right? So what do you mean by that? Are you meaning that you want 1 kilogram mass of milk or 1 kilogram weight of milk? What is the scenario over here? Can you explain this? पहले बताएं किसने किया ये? कौन? Who is the person who basically has went to a milk shop in his has went to it? Dayan नहीं गया होगा. Bertha, what about you?
No, I haven't gone to that. That's all.
ठीक है. So most of the people confuse.
Sir,
रयान गया है. Okay, जबरदस्त जबरदस्त. रैन गया है, ठीक है. So most of the people say basically they say कि weight is equivalent to mass, right? Most of the people have an idea कि weight is equivalent to mass, ठीक है, and that is pretty wrong, right? So वो समझते हैं कि हम बोल रहे हैं कि 1 kilogram is basically the weight of the milk which I'm ordering, but actually they weighed using a huge basically cup which basically measures the number of liters, right? That is amount of mass. See, this is a pretty common mistake which I have also gone through it in my childhood, and I realized it when my sir basically spoke the truth, right? So जल्दी से let's skim the content थोड़ा बहुत, then we're gonna relate with some example, right? So the mass of an object is the measure of amount of what matter in the body, right? So what is matter? Can you explain what is matter? This is turning into chemistry class. What is matter? Yes. Anyone? What is,
matter is anything that makes up a substance.
yeah, ठीक है. Matter is basically the atoms in our body, right? The atoms in our body is basically matter, right? Which has mass, it occupies space, it has density, right? So it is just a measure of amount of matter in a body. Like imagine कि आपके पास you have 2 cubes in your, let's say, in your room. One cube is a red cube. Alhamdulillah, sorry. And it contains liquid, right? It contains liquid, right? And the other container, this is container A, and here container B, which contains basically gas, right? So gas को हम ले लेते हैं कि it's sort of, let's say, these are atoms of the gas. So which container has the most amount of matter? Container A or container B? Yes. Let's say if I give you a value also, ski mass is let's say 4 kg and this mass of container B is 2 kg. So which one is has the most amount of matter over here?
Sir, A.
Container A obviously liquid dense भी ज़्यादा होता है, ठीक है? If you just see the properties of liquid and solid, you will see in the next classes. So you will see कि container A, matter in container A is greater than matter in container B because उसकी mass ज़्यादा है, right? So amount of matter हमने measure की, which give me basically this relation over here, right? So it can be stated that a mass is a measure of the quantity of matter in an object at rest relative to an observer, right? So what are they seeing over here? Okay, let's imagine if there is a person over here, Kashif. Okay, Kashif is a person standing over here, and let's say he's seeing this particular container A, which contains liquid, right? And let's imagine if we have observer number 2, that is, let's say Ali again. Ali is a physicist, he loves to explore this domain. and he basically is testing it using some special instrument, right? Let's say he took a microscope, right? He took a microscope just to basically observe the particles inside this particular container. Let's say this is made up of glass, right? It's see through. So this particular person is seeing what? This particular person will be seeing atoms, right? And he will be seeing the structure of atoms, okay? Which is basically sort of like this, okay? ठीक है इलेक्ट्रॉन्स उड़ रहे होंगे ठीक है दिस विल बी द न्यूक्लियस ओवर हियर he would see this particular structure ठीक है तो उसके हिसाब से matter is basically defined as the mass is going to be the amount of atom in the body right so Kashi is just going to see this particular outside box he's going to just measure कि हाँ how much liquid is in the container and depending upon that he's going to find just the he's going to basically measure the amount of mass in the body right so relative जो meaning है ना observer की that is stating कि someone can be observing the structure, the matter inside the atom, ठीक है? Or like Ali, which is who is basically using a microscope to observe the structure, वो कितना basically dense है, what amount of matter is inside an atom, right? However, Kashu is just observing the liquid, right? The liquid body. So still they are measuring the amount of mass, right? हमें पता है कि इलेक्ट्रॉन की मास कितनी होती है, right? So इलेक्ट्रॉन की मास होती है 9.11 एक्सपोनेंट -31 kg. दैट्स प्रीटी स्मॉल ठीक है एंड काशिफ ने मेजर की काशिफ ने बोला कि मास ऑफ कंटेनर ए इज 4 किलोग्राम उसने सिर्फ लिक्विड के मास मेजर कर दिया राइट तो सिमिलरली इट्स द सेम थिंग डिपेंडिंग अपॉन ऑब्जर्वर क्या ऑब्जर्व कर रहा है डज दैट मेक सेंस दिस पॉइंट डज दिस पॉइंट ऑफ
सर
ऑब्जर्व
एक दफा रिपीट करना
अच्छा
एक दफा
अच्छा ओके व्हिच पार्ट वेयर वर यू लॉस्ट
द ऑब्जर्वर वाली बात जो थी
okay sure I'm just saying कि काशिफ is basically just observing the mass of the liquid in container A right and he came to conclusion कि हमारे पास mass of container A is basically with the liquid is 4 kilogram over here so this particular person Ali is measuring the matter the mass of one electron of of this particular atom of a liquid ठीक है they are both doing basically they are both measuring masses बट एक ओवरऑल स्ट्रक्चर की ओवरऑल बॉडी विद लिक्विड की मास ऑब्जर्व कर रहा है एक सिंगल एटम के अंदर इलेक्ट्रॉन की मास को ऑब्जर्व कर रहा है but they relate मतलब they have different point of perspectives but they're still measuring the mass right so atoms कितना dense है उसने mass निकाल ली है similarly उसने mass overall container की निकाल ली है it's just stating कि mass is just the amount of matter in a body right a body can be an atom the body can be a container A doesn't make sense because this statement is
या इट ओके समझ आ गया
something which needs to be clear ठीक है अच्छा री is it clear to Mashal and Ryan also give
Yes.
okay good ठीक है so standard unit of mass the SI unit of mass is basically you all can see on the slide that is kilogram right we have seen this in the first chapter कि mass का किलो SI unit is basically kilogram kg which is written over here okay the confusing part is that कि we often say कि let's say if I ask what is your weight Ran what is your weight
सर 35 kg
35 kg right so I said क्या Ryan आपका weight क्या है Ryan said के my weight of Ryan is 35 kg so do you think it's the correct logic over here are you stating your mass or weight
मास
right so that is pretty a big wrong concept which we have been using since decades ठीक है so the term weight is often used when mass is really basically meant over here ठीक है so I was asking about your mass right you said कि sir it's 35 kg ठीक है sorry I was asking about your weight you said कि sir my weight is 35 kg but kg is the unit for the mass right this is a pretty which have we have been using this since decades, right? So we need to change about this. But in science, the two ideas are distinct and had different units over here. Okay? Weight, we're gonna define weight in next slides over here. So don't confuse this, right? This confusion is not helped by the fact that mass is found on a balance by process, unfortunately called weighing, right? So if you just go to, let's say, a traditional sabzi wala in Karachi or anywhere in Pakistan, okay. So what they do basically, they have a pivot over here, ठीक है. उनके पास एक सेक्शन होता है यहाँ पे, we put the weight, ठीक है. And their section number 2, right. ये मैं थोड़ा गंदा बना दिया. Let me just fix it. I guess you go to a sabzi wala, ठीक है, or from the place where you get vegetables, ठीक है. So let's say he put some blocks over here, right? He put some blocks over here, and these blocks has some labels on it, ठीक है. So let's say these are 1 kg, 1 kg blocks, right? Let's say you want to get, let's say Mom told you, okay, get me 1 kg of, let's say, onions. Okay, so they will put the onions over here. So onions are basically, he keeps the onions on the side of the weighing machine, this weighing, okay. And as soon as they balance out, as soon as they became straight, so he basically takes them out and puts them in a shopper, right? So some most of the guys say कि अगर ये weight use कर रहे हैं basically to balance it out, therefore we are getting a weight of 1 kg of onion, right? Again, this is pretty wrong idea, right? We're getting a mass of onions that is equal to 1 kg, right? So the processes which we are using for measuring the mass and the myths which have been established since decades have basically destroyed this idea of mass and weight. So this needs to be clarified in this particular initial chapter, because in the next chapter this will build up, right? So any questions in the idea of mass? Yes or no?
सर तो
What
जब
the?
when we go to जब हम सब्जी वाले के पास जाते हैं तो कभी
What
कभार
I
जो
can
है
hear
वो
you. Sorry,
हम
थोड़ा और से बोला.
सर अब आवाज़ सही आ रही है
अब से यार बेहतर है.
जब हम सब्जी वाले के पास जाते हैं तो अगर हमारे अनियंस जो है वो बिगर साइज में बिग होंगे तो उसका वो कम आएंगे और अगर जो है छोटे साइज में होंगे तो वो ज़्यादा आएंगे तो वो इसी वजह से होता है क्योंकि उसके अंदर जो मास है वो डिफरेंट होता है
Hmm. Yes. So yeah, that's basically, let's imagine if you want to get 1 kg, let's say if you are taking big onions, okay, you get only four, right? Let's say हर onion की basically एक onion 250 grams, right? So if you combine all of them four together, you will get 1 kg mass, right? Imagine if you are taking small onions, obviously they are going to be weighing less, right? So you can get more onions, right? Let's say एक onion is basically approximately 100 grams. We get 10 more onions. And if you combine those mass, you will get 1 kg, right? Okay. Still in the end, we are getting a mass of 1 kilogram of onions, not the weight weighing. Let's say not, you cannot say कि my onions weight is 1 kilogram. Okay, 1 kilo uh, onions is them. Okay, so that is a wrong idea over here. So does that make sense? So give me a thumbs up if it makes sense. Everyone, thumbs up if it makes sense. वर्दा को समझ नहीं आया? Is वर्दा here? Hello वर्दा. I guess
सर
you.
मैंने थम्स अप दे दिया.
I cannot see your thumbs up.
अच्छा.
मुझे लग रहा है वर्दा is just having a cup of coffee. Chilling out, right?
नहीं नहीं सर मैं कॉफी नहीं पीती.
अच्छा चाय चलें. ओके चेक.
नहीं वो भी नहीं पीती.
पानी पी लूंगे आप, सही है. ठीक है. अच्छा. ओके. सो नाउ these are definitions of mass. ठीक है, अगर आपके पास if you in an exam if you get a question के Ryan, if I ask you a question के what is mass, right? Usually paper 2 के अंदर आता है. It gives basic comes out for 1 mark, and then they start your theory numerical questions, right? So the mass is the measure of quantity of matter. This is pretty important in an object at rest related to an observer, right? At rest की मीनिंग क्या है कि imagine this is Ali standing over here, ठीक है, and he saw football, right? Football. No, it's not a wheel, it's a football, right? I was a student of Picasso, so I'm pretty good at drawings. So he saw football over here, sir, it's at rest, ठीक है? तो उसने जाके इसने weigh कर ली इसकी mass and the mass came out to be, let's say, 400 grams, right? So it needs to be at rest because when it starts to move, something complex starts to occur, and which I don't want to state over here because you guys will get confused. Just remember कि ये the mass should be at rest, ठीक है? So what is now we are coming to a new idea, ठीक है? If we have mass, if an object has mass, ठीक है, and you take, let's say, this object to a planet, ठीक है, which has gravitational field, which has gravity, right? So what happens? It basically has some weight, right? So agar if I ask someone ki what is your weight, so that is not equal to your mass. Okay, let's, as Ryan said, we're going to see a formula in a while. Okay, how do you find weight? Okay, so weight, a gravitational force on an object that has mass. Right? So weight is what? It's a gravitational force on an object that has mass. So if any object which has mass, so obviously that would have some certain weight, right? अच्छा जी, so you should know this relation कि 1 kg is equivalent to what? 1000 grams. ठीक है, अगर आपको मास दी भी है, let's say if I give you in a question कि your mass of our object is 250 grams, you will always convert this first of all into kilograms, then solve the question, right? So you can use this relation, ठीक है? So आपके पास this is called ratio method. Let me solve it to you ताकि आपको याद रहे. If convert mass, right? So mass conversion. So from क्या लिख रहा हूँ? It's basically from grams to kilograms. Grams to kilograms. So we're gonna use a method which is called, which you have already seen in your mathematics class, that is called ratio method, right? So what is the ratio method, Vardha? Can you explain the ratio method?
सर जब हम उस दोनों को डिवाइड करते हैं
Yes.
like the
One,
two values.
yes. So 1 kilogram is 1000 grams. So let's say if I gave you a mass of one football was 250 grams, convert this into kilograms. So grams के नीचे gonna put grams, ठीक है, and जो unknown है उसके नीचे gonna put just x kg, right? And then you do something which is called magical shake, right? I call it shake. You cross multiply, right? So 1 times 250, sorry ये 260 नहीं है, 250 है. 1 times 250 equals to x times 1000, right? So get x subject over here. So this would be, यहाँ पे 1000 multiply हो रहा है, वहाँ पे आके divide हो जाएगा, right? So x is going to be 250 times 1 is 250 divided by 1000. So your mass in kilograms is 0.25 kg, right? So now similarly, if you want to convert from kilograms to grams, that is pretty simple. तो मुझे बताया कैसे करेंगे? Let's say if I give you now कि let's say Ryan की mass convert into grams, ठीक है? The Ryan's mass is basically 35 kg, right? So what is the question? Convert this to grams. So who will solve it out for me?
Sir, 3,500.
3500, sure?
No, 35,000.
इसके दो तरीके हैं करने के, ठीक है? इसके we have two methods to solve it out. Method one is the prefix method, right? But you can watch the recordings. This is chapter number 1. So what is the prefix method? कि हमने देखा है कि kilo is basically equivalent to, basically state for kilo, it is equivalent to 10 to the power 3, right? So just remove this prefix, so you get your mass in gram, right? So it's going to be simply 35 times exponent 3 grams, that is therefore equivalent to 35,000 grams. Or the second method जो हमने अभी last slide में करा था, we can use that over here, that also works, that is the ratio method, that also works pretty well over here, right? अच्छा जी, ये क्या कहता है? ये कहता है कि simply you should know the relation कि 1 kilogram is 1000 grams. Now you have 35 kg, तो kg के नीचे kg, grams के नीचे gram, so it's unknown, so x आ गया. Then shake, cross multiply. 1 times x equals to 35 times 1000. So it's again, your answer is coming out to be 35 1000 grams. Answer. Does that make sense? How do you convert the masses?
Yes.
Sir, we can just directly multiply by 1000 as well,
Yeah,
right?
you can do that. You can do that. ठीक है? If you're sure, आपको सही से याद है, you can do that. If you don't trust yourself, then you can use ratio method. ठीक है? It's just a matter of trusting yourself, right? Okay. So हमने ये relation देख लिया है, and then